And wonderful to see everybody, or at least your name if your video's on, video's off. It's good to have you here today. And again, we have our first student of the month that Laura will introduce in just a moment. But let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll do my best to remember it this time. So anybody can jump in though. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So off to Richard Pine with our inspirational words and invocation for today.
Thank you. President Abraham Lincoln, in his first inaugural address, said, "I have no purpose, directly or indirectly, to interfere with the institution of slavery in the states where it exists. I believe I have no lawful right to do so, and I have no inclination to do so." I bring this up not to discredit the great emancipator, but to bring him even greater praise. As we work with organizations like Rotary and Braver Angels that seek to depolarize America, find common ground, achieve higher levels of mutual understanding, and healthier levels of mutual respect, we all, like Lincoln, need to learn to change and soften what are today our strongly held and maybe even oft-quoted positions. Please join me in prayer. We ask for the courage to examine our beliefs, to hold fast to values that still ring true, and to steer away from that which no longer serves us or our country. Amen.
Thank you, Richard. So next off, Principal Tiffin, would you introduce our student guest today, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to. President Sue and fellow Rotarians, this is Laura Tiffin, principal at South Salem High School, and it's my honor to introduce to you South's Student of the Month for October for the category of fall sports, which is a little odd because our fall sports are now scheduled for March and April, but our traditional fall sports, our Student of the Month plays on our boys soccer team and is also very involved in our international baccalaureate program, challenging himself this term with 3 out of his 4 classes being IB classes. And so we are very happy to introduce to Rotary Alexis Luna Ramirez.
Wonderful, thank you. And Alexis, I'll have you come up in just a few minutes to give your presentation to the club. We've got a little bit of club business to do before we give you the mic to talk to us about your work. So with that, we have some guests. Jennifer Rhodes, to start with you, and then on to Deb Patterson.
Hi, I'm Beth Rhodes here with CNR Remodeling, and President Sue and fellow Rotarians, I'd like to introduce Jennifer DeCenso with GHR. She's here with me today, so no jumping cameras, but love to introduce her to our club and just maybe one day we'll all be able to meet in person and get to know her. So
great, thank you. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And then Deb, you had a guest as well.
Well, I'd like to introduce Jason Greenwood from Divine Distillers, and I think he's just hopping on now, so I'm not quite sure he's here yet, but when he gets here, thanks for giving him a quick hello.
Great, thank you. All righty. I didn't see any other guests. Let me double check. Next off, we have 2 visiting Rotarians. One is our presenter today, Dan Sokol from the Rotary Club of 3 Creeks in Clark County. And then Mary Louise Van Atta is joining us today from the South Salem Rotary Club. So thank you both for joining us today. A quick reminder for folks that we do have Lord and Shriver Gardens gravel pushing tonight if you're able to join us at 5:30. So just remember that. And Adam Kohler had dropped an extensive email out about where to meet and where to park and all those kinds of things. So then on to you, Dale Penn, for bell ringers.
All right, well, thank you very much. Just a reminder that folks are able to pay for their bell ringers on the website. Number one, a bell ringer is from myself. I'd like to ring the bell in support of our 2020 bell ringer goal. The committee would ask that members consider donating all or a portion of the lunch money that you would have purchased, or the lunch you would have purchased at a live meeting, towards bell ringers. I just did that online right now, so I know it works very well. So please ring the bell. Our second bell ringer, Pam Wasson. Pam is ringing the bell for the hands-on committee members who are placing gravel on the footpaths at Deepwood tonight. Thank you for keeping Salem beautiful. Please ring the bell. And the third one, Tim Nissen, is ringing the bell to celebrate the following Rotarians who signed up to donate blood yesterday. They are Don and Teresa Lule, John Shirley, Linda Wooters, Spencer Taylor, Catherine Keppel, Roger Kirshner, John McCulley, Tammy Denny, Bruce Anderson, Lisa Mance, Pat Force, and Holly Berry. Each unit of blood typically helps 3 people, and there is no source other than our fellow human beings. Donating blood is a noble thing to do. Please ring the bell. And I'll just mention that if we have anyone from the floor, please send me a message or raise your hand now or put it in chat. And if not, I think that's it.
All right. Thank you, Dale. Thank you,
Yep.
everybody, for your bell ringers. So Alexis, I'd like to welcome you to front and center and to share with the rest of our fellow Rotarians about what you're up to at South Salem High School and what your plans are for the future.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Alexis Luna, and I've played soccer since I was 5 years old. I started getting involved in competitive soccer at the age of 13, and I played varsity soccer for South Salem High School last year. I came into a team that had missed the playoffs the year prior to the year of my arrival. With that being said, there were many things I learned about myself that particular season. I captained the team to the OSAA playoffs, but failed to help my team surpass the first round. That also taught me new things and ways to improve myself as a leader and a player in order to become more successful. I learned that I can be a good leader since a lot of my teammates looked up to me and respected me a lot. I was able to guide a lot of them with advice I had gained throughout my years of experience. Every practice, I made sure I gave at least one person a piece of advice. The losing part showed me that I have to be more strict and demanding. We lacked in a lot of areas that could have easily been areas we shouldn't have struggled on. I would see players not giving 100% effort at practice, and I would let it slide by. But that will for sure change this year. Moving on to my future plans, I have one offer whose deadline is at the end of the month. I'm still in the process of reviewing that option, and I will have my decision by the end of the month. Lastly, I'm very thankful for my family, my friends, and my coaches who have supported me these 13 years of playing, all who have given me advice and always believed in my success. I am also very thankful for the award because I feel like I deserve it, as I was doing full IB, doing soccer, and also lifting at the time. I had a very busy schedule going on due to having my focus on 3 main things, but I was able to successfully get through the first semester with all of that going on. Thank you to the Downtown Rotary Club.
Thank you, Alexis. Oh, we have a question for you, Alexis. I'll read it to you. We see your many awards and medals behind you. What has been the most meaningful accomplishment you've had to date, and why? Great question, Ryan.
I'll pull it out.
So many, it's tangled up.
I love how you knew exactly which one.
That's great.
Well, it's this medal. We played, we were champions in 2019, and I had been playing State Cup for like 5 years with the same team, and I was never able to win this award until this past year. So it became a very special award for me.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. I even have the trophy too, as well.
Where's it? Oh, can you show us?
It's here.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you play on one of the youth Timbers teams, if I'm catching the logo right. Is that correct?
Yeah, I play for Capital FC Timbers.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you so much. And thank you for your leadership on the soccer team and continuing that legacy of success for the men's South Salem High School soccer. So we look forward to hearing about your continued achievements. And I know Principal Tiffin will make sure that she keeps us connected to your good work. So, an important work, and best of luck in your continued IB studies. We know that that's very rigorous, and to your continued success. We will be sending you, Alexis, a certificate regarding being our Student of the Month. And we'll also send you a challenge coin, a Rotary challenge coin, just for you to hold on to as you're making your leadership decision. So thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great. Our pleasure.
Thanks, Alexis.
Yeah, yeah. So now I'd like to hand it over to, we're a little ahead of schedule, but I'd like to hand it over to Past District Governor Renee to introduce our presenter today.
Thank you, President Sue. An overview of Dan's long and varied career in criminal justice and the military. I refer you to the write-up in the weekly e-blast for that. I won't be reviewing it all here. But I first met Dan Sokol when I was district governor and I was visiting clubs. As he said, he is a member of the Three Creeks Vancouver Club, which is our newest club in the district. They gave me a lovely basket full of goodies, and it included Dan's book, America's Jihad. And as I learned reading the book, jihad, simply translated, means the struggle to do the right thing. Among his other military assignments, Dan served as a criminal investigation agent during Desert Storm, as a research manager, and an advisor on human terrain teams in Iraq. That's a story in itself. Working closely with Native Iraqis, military, NGOs, and other groups, he saw a very different picture of what was going on than many of us saw from our local media. The stories and essays that he compiled to make up his book bring understanding and nuance to what was and is a very complex area of the world. The subtitle of his book is Building and Repairing Bridges Across Cultural and Political Divides. The next time I saw Dan, he was leading a session at the district conference in Bend in May 2018. He was on to working with Braver Angels, then called Better Angels, which is a reference to a healing quote from Abraham Lincoln after the Civil War. For Dan, this work is not so different from what he has been doing most of his life. He is still building and repairing bridges across cultural and political divides. Rotarian friends, guests, please welcome Dan Sokol.
Thank you so much. Now, if I can find my screen, we'll be in good shape. Well, it was there when we started. So let me go back to that. Exit full screen. Let's get out of this. And we had this all worked out between me and Jessica about a half hour ago, 45 minutes perhaps. So here we go. And now let's go back to the share screen. There we go. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And thanks also to Richard for giving a good description of what it's all about, bringing together two organizations that have very similar goals, and that being, of course, Braver Angels now, And Rotary. You know, some of you have seen my previous presentations, know that I like quotes from Mark Twain. And the one that I've used previously, I've pushed all the way to the end just in case we have time to get to it. As a law enforcement guy and one who investigated frauds, this particular quote really resonated with us in law enforcement and in dealing with so many people that have been conned out of their life savings or victims of other forms of fraud. And that is, it's easier to con someone than to convince them that they have been conned. For those of us who have had elderly relatives, perhaps, who have fallen for particular causes or supposed nonprofits and do-gooding agencies, you know what we're talking about there. But if you look at today's politics, indeed, as we look at the tribalism that's going on, that folks have become more and more embedded in their belief systems and gone to the extremes in many cases, and just are not lending themselves to be convinced that they maybe don't have all their facts straight, or that they don't have exclusivity over the truth. So another title that I use is If Everyone's Screaming, Who's Listening? This goes back to my mediation days in basically taking a look at any conflict that's going on. This is among the challenges that we in Braver Angels, that community mediators in certainly many organizations such as Rotary wish that we could delve into the areas of politics and religion. Today we're going to be, of course, focusing on politics, but the same principles apply to religion when it comes to trying to find middle ground and trying to look for our commonalities instead of our differences. And all too often, that's what we focus on, is our differences today. So we're collaborating to bridge the many divides, Rotary and Braver Angels. And we have a couple of initiatives today that I'm going to try and squeeze into the time allotted. And those are with malice toward none. And I'm hoping to reach Alexis and Principal Lara and others who might be involved with Rotaract, Interact, or the area campuses to try and bring these initiatives to our younger generations and get them engaged. Just like Rotary, Braver Angels and other organizations are fairly pretty much comprised of folks over 50 years old, and we're really trying hard to reach our younger generations. So in that regard, we certainly have common goals as well. So how did we get here? How do we get into this mess today, just less than 3 weeks to the election on November 3rd? Is it the truth? We're all familiar with that. But this is where it gets a little bit complicated when we ask whose facts and who fact checks the fact checkers. Whose truth as a result of that? And so part of the effort of my book that was mentioned by past District Governor Renee was to point out that we've all got our own version of the truth based upon our upbringing and the various influences in our lives and our experiences that got us to today. Truth is much more subjective than we like to think that it is, and sometimes facts are fairly subjective, especially if we're delving into the social sciences as opposed to the pure sciences. I'm going to show a busy screen in a moment that shows the drivers of discord, distrust, and division that are heaped upon us every day. This comes from political hyperpartisan tribalism, the mis and disinformation that surrounds us, and now even more so in the electronic universe. And of course, the 365, 24/7 mainstream and social media. And it's an effort for us all to recognize and realize that we're being manipulated every day, whether it's product that's being pointed our way or the convenience of Amazon to get us to those products, or into areas that are a little bit more manipulative in the way of of ideas that drive us towards particular organizations or voting principles. And of course, all of the freedoms that we enjoy in our communications and First Amendment rights and so on are being exploited by our adversaries, such as Russia and China and Iran and North Korea, to name a few. The electronic universe has certainly leveled the playing field when it comes to power and influence around the world. So again, this focus on differences is what's gotten us to into this mess today, and victimhood or identity politics, instead of focusing on common interests, shared values, and goals. And those are the principles that are foundational to mediation and any effective communications. So here it comes. Drivers of discord, distrust, and division. I'll just let that speak for itself for about maybe 30 seconds. The main thing to consider as we reflect back on our history and look towards the future is one of our principles used to be, united we stand, or once stood, and now what? And we're all asking ourselves that, I think, to see what comes out of this upcoming election, what direction this country's going to go, and how can we possibly bring our culture, our way of thinking back to positive, believing the best in one another, extending goodwill, and giving people the benefit of the doubt, and so on. So long as we have a media that thrives on and perpetuates conflict, we're going to have a difficult time reaching that point. But again, it's recognizing the extent to which we are being manipulated today and what we might be able to do about that. So what can we do about all of this? Things that resonate most with people in communications is respecting the other person's dignity. And in doing so, establishing levels of mutual respect and mutual understanding. And sometimes that takes repairing some damage that has been done, and sometimes it's baby steps to get us there. But achieving mutual understanding and mutual respect is key to any successful communications, and certainly to collaborative problem solving. We've got grassroots initiatives out there, such as Braver Angels, and the Citizens Climate Lobby, which is very active and a group to behold. And while they have 180,000 active members, and they've got representation with each of the representatives in government, they are recognizing that they've got to increase their numbers when it comes to conservatives, that they are not likely to succeed in their agendas unless they've got input from the right and find some middle ground. And the National Institute for Civil Discourse, this has chapters on various college campuses. It's out of the University of Arizona, and it's affiliated with a couple of other groups that have been founded by or are directed by a fellow named Keith Allred, who's very involved with our folks in Congress. Speaking of whom, there's a Problem Solvers Caucus that you might have increasingly heard in the news of late, in that they are heavily leaning on the Speaker, among others, and the White House, and so on, to find some middle ground on this latest bailout package. And of course, we recognize all the recent layoffs and furloughs associated with the airline and travel industry. So they were founded through nolabels.org. I encourage you to become familiar with the Problem Solvers Caucus, mainly because that gives us hope out here in the rest of the country that we do have some congressmen and women that are talking to one another and striving for bipartisanship, which has all but disappeared. Today, we're going to delve a little bit into With Malice Toward None, and the offshoot of that, of Hold America Together. Both of these are fairly urgent at this point in that their goals are to bring us to a better place so that whatever the results after November 3rd, we can find ways to talk to one another, we can better understand our differences, work towards our commonalities, and so on. And the target areas we'll get into in a minute, but it's threesome. It's in the religious congregations, on campuses, and through civic organizations such as Rotary. Restoring civics and critical thinking. I think we've all lamented how civics has disappeared from K through 12 education, excuse me, and critical thinking has been lost on our younger generations, and that results in folks going into these silos, going into some of those areas where they're being manipulated as opposed to being able to analyze the validity and the source and the agenda of what's come before them. I'm rather pleased with the Guest Speakers Bureau, and that's an initiative here locally between our Rotary Club of Three Creeks and area veterans. And we're just about where we've got most of the bugs worked out of this, where it not only serves educators and students, but also serves those with civic organizations such as Rotary that are looking for guest speakers in particular areas. And we hope that this will eventually sweep through District 5100 as well as be adopted broadly through Rotary and various communities that can benefit from this bridge with our educators and help to instill values of ethics and accountability and those sorts of things in our younger generations. This is a quick snapshot. It's a busy slide, but I'll walk you through it here. The goals of Braver Angels workshops, and it's to move people from hatred or extreme beliefs to respect and appreciation for the other side. And essentially, our goal is to loosen fixed positions. So as folks enter the workshop, their core emotions and their positions might be in this range here as they go through the 4 exercises of an all-day Braver Angels workshop. By the middle part of the day, early in the day, there's a level of pity towards the other side, like they've been duped, they're well-meaning, but they've been fooled. And then as the day progresses and all the nuances come out relative to various issues, and as folks hear the other side more and more, they realize, hey, I agree on that issue. I may disagree on that one, but I sure agree on this one. And as you work through the nuances of various political positions and issues, folks come to realize by the end of the day that we have far more in common than differences. And we might actually have some potential friends that we've met today that came in from the other side. So the workshops are powerful. There's also skills workshops that are shorter, 2.5 to 3 hours, and so on. But let's move on to with malice toward none. In essence, the timeline is taking us up towards the election right now, and there's not too much time to deal with the preparation stage, though I hope that today we're reaching folks in education and with any luck at all associated with your area campuses there in Salem, high school level on up, that can start getting together and discussing some of these issues and learning to better and more effectively communicate. So the Hold America Together is this space we're in right now. That's our goal. And as we work our way from election night to election resolved, where are we going to be? Are we going to be in a gloom and doom position? Well, one side probably will be. Or will we be there for hope and change that will truly bring us to a better place? And then rejoining with each other and continuing the dialogue and continuing to improve our community relations, our abilities to collaborate and problem solve for the greater good. So as another quote that I like, this happens to be from Peter Marshall, but may we think of freedom not as the right to do as we please, but as the opportunity to do what is right. And I think that certainly applies to all of our thoughts as Rotarians and anyone that really wants to see a better and thriving community where folks have much better problem solving skills. So this is the challenge on November 4th. After the presidential election, where are we going to be? And the opportunity that I referred to earlier is focusing on religious communities. So those of you in this club that are affiliated with, or maybe even leaders among congregations in your community, see if some of this doesn't resonate with you. And if you can put together some workshops of any size, we can come up with some moderators to help facilitate the conversation and bring folks closer together and learn how to better communicate with one another, even if they have political and religious differences. Colleges and universities reaching our younger generations, Rotaract and Interact already reflects how Rotary is very concerned about and focused on our younger generations and would like to get them increasingly engaged in the communities. So again, those of you that are in this audience that already have some groups that you're working with at this level, please communicate with me and I'll get you in touch with Mike Evans, who's already involved down there in 2 of the campuses, Lynn Benton and Chemaketka. Yep. So anyway, and that's where we'd like to make connections today. And then civic groups such as Rotary Club. And I'm always a believer in not only Rotary Clubs collaborating with one another, but also reaching out to other organizations in the area that have similar goals. So the religious congregations, you can hold separate gatherings of the folks on either side, and then you can teaching folks how to better communicate, to avoid hot buttons and such that are going to set the other side off and impede effective communications. And then follow that up with joint gatherings where folks come together from either side. And this is how Braver Angels was founded back in November of 2016, bringing folks together who had voted for Hillary Clinton and for Donald Trump and gaining a better understanding of one another. And rather than coming in trying to change anyone's mind, the effort, the focus is on trying to better understand the other person. And again, looking for some of those common values and shared interests. So before the election in the fall, on the colleges and universities, engage students as active co-creators, carry out bridging divides activities, and those will all be provided as you connect with Braver Angels. Solicit student pre-commitments to participate and consider getting some staff or students trained as Braver Angels moderators and debate chairs. So there's a lot going on today to try and offset the polarization and division that was so well described by Richard Pine in his Moments of Inspiration. After the election, this is going to sound similar to what we propose for the religious gatherings. Again, hold separate gatherings of people who similarly voted, and then follow that up with joint gatherings. So you're teaching key communication skills and a curiosity. Folks react to genuine curiosity, authenticity, and things of that nature. And that makes communications go so much better. So follow up with joint gatherings. Here's a photograph of a Rotary Club, downtown Lock Haven or something of that nature. Not sure exactly where this photograph came from, but one of our co-founders and designers of the workshops is with the University of Minnesota, and I suspect this might be somewhere up in that realm from Bill Doherty and some of the Rotary Clubs and districts that he's been working with. And John Hugo as well, who has become a Braver Angels. And speaking of John, our General Secretary, this is a quote from him: regardless of who wins the 2020 election, it will be up to us and civic leaders to renew our commitments to building goodwill and friendships. That's why he's supporting, with malice toward none, this initiative, and he encourages civic leaders certainly to include those in the downtown Salem Rotary Club to get involved at various levels in bringing folks together. Another quote: Americans will always hold strong, passionate views, and we're not trying to change that, but we're trying to find that middle ground, help them to reach a better understanding of what they share in common. And with malice toward none is an intelligent and strategic effort to accomplish just that. That came from Glenn Stanton, He's with Global Family Formation Studies at Focus on the Family, and he's also a Braver Angels board member. So how do organizations sign up? Go to this website here, braverangels.org is the homepage. If you want to go directly to what we do and with malice toward none, you can include that. And this slide set has already been shared with both Renee and with Jessica. And so that's available to any of you. And whether you get together groups and invite one of us to help moderate a session of some kind, or you get trained yourself, I encourage you to take a look at the materials, get some folks trained, and find out how we can be even more effective as Rotarians through these communication skills. So you'll receive an invitation to Zoom orientation meeting with Braver Angels online. I guess there's no other way for Zoom. And you'll receive resources to help planning, and you'll receive invitations to periodic meetings. Once you're on the Braver Angels distribution list, then you'll be kept apprised of just about any activities that come up. Most of it today, of course, on Zoom. So this is a little review. The key principles to remember in communications is bring goodwill to the table. Strive for mutual understanding, strive for mutual respect. Can be in either order, but so long as you understand that dignity and respect are key and it needs to go both ways. Have a genuine curiosity, bring authenticity to the table, to the conversation. People will react favorably to someone that they feel to be authentic. And of course, you can always fall back on the variations of the golden rule of treating others as you would want to be treated. Problem Solvers Caucus, I think we're at a point where probably better go to questions. So this is just, you can look at this screen. This tells you a little bit more about the Problem Solvers Caucus. There's 25 Republicans, 25 Democrats in Congress, and there's some senators coming on board. So this is, I put this out as a positive, a reason for us to be encouraged that we're not the only ones out here in the field who are distressed and frustrated with Congress, but there is a number of congressmen and women who are similarly frustrated and have had the political courage to step away from their party to an extent and reach across the aisle. I think you might recognize, I believe this is Kurt Schrader right here, so you're probably familiar with him. So, this is a little bit about alliances, but let me open it up. I'll stop sharing the screen for the moment and see if any of you have questions.
Yeah, so folks, if you want to raise your hand or drop a note into the box, we can start calling on folks. While folks are gearing up here, Dan, I'm curious if there's nuances with the conversations with teens, with youth versus adult groups.
Well, I think teens are probably most frustrated of trying to figure out what they're stepping into. And of course, with civics having essentially gone away in most of the education system, they don't have a firm grasp of what our governance is all about, how it works, 3 branches of government and so on, and how there is really supposed to be a bipartisan effort. So I have not had specific encounters with youth since we went to Zoom. And so this is where this outreach comes to bear as we try to reach through various groups, especially Rotaract, Interact, and try to get invitations to engage. There have been some national efforts and debates that are increasingly bringing youth to the debates and to the topics. And so once you initiate that connection, you will get connected with some of the debates that take on various subjects, from what has Trump done for this demographic or not, and so on.
All right, thank you for that.
So we know the curiosity is there. We just need to make the connection.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there other questions from the membership here? I'm doing my scrolling, Dan. I'm not always successful, but.
problem. If folks are still pondering, I can go back to the couple of quotes that I had pushed beyond the last slide.
That'd be great. And then I'll watch for hands being raised.
Excellent. So the 50 alliances is where the rubber meets the road. Folks that come to the workshops and they say, this is great. What can we do to further the cause? And that's when you start engagements through op-eds, letters to the editor, and get engaged at the local and state level in performing workshops or bringing bipartisan issues to the fore. So we're at my last slide, just to have the contact information there, and I will go back to that in just a second. This little Venn diagram here, by the way, that originally came from Rotary, and why it doesn't still use it, I don't know. But the beauty of it is it shows how complex the world is out there that you're stepping into, Alexis, and the extent to which it can seem daunting or overwhelming, but yet it also reveals that there are areas of overlap and where you can find common ground. So don't give up hope. It's there. You sometimes just have to work a little harder to find it. And this is, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. So if we don't have a question at the moment, the other Mark Twain quote that I like, not related to this, so let me give you this first. We have a fourth brother, admit no evil, but he left the group for a career in politics. And if anyone's paying attention to what's going on in the various sessions right now for the Supreme Court nominee, you realize that the admit no evil is front and center, and it's on both sides, sadly. So the other quote I was going to mention is, if you don't read the newspaper, you are misinformed. If you do read the newspaper, you are disinformed or in a bad place, either way. So you can't trust the media these days, whatever side you might be looking for. And let me get out of this. So anybody have any questions, comments, or can tell me about what you might have going on with some of the local campuses there?
Well, let's see, Linda and Warren Bednarz, do you have a question?
Yes, I had a question. Just want a little more detail about the workshops that you offer in terms of length of time. You mentioned, is there 1 day, 2 day, few hour, what kind of the options are for different organizations?
Thanks for asking that. And that was originally in the PowerPoints, previous PowerPoints. It probably might be closer to what former District Governor Renee was looking for. So let's cover that. The first workshop that was done back in November, December of 2016 was actually an entire weekend. It was very successful, it worked out well. They got some time on NPR, and then folks started demanding or requesting more of this for their own communities. And then it was honed down to an all-day workshop. This is the red-blue workshop, which has 4 exercises. The first one is stereotypes. So we become more aware of stereotyping as we look at how the other side views us and how unfair that seems to be, and as we try to bring clarity to it, and humility as well. So the sense of introspection and humility is foundational to the workshops. The next exercise is what's called the fishbowl, where the 7 or 8 or 9 conservatives that are in the exercise or in the workshop are in the center, and they're answering 2 questions. What do you feel is the strength of your side, and what are you concerned about? And the other side strictly listens and realizes as they touch on different topics and issues, I agree with that, I don't agree with that, and so on. And that's what takes folks to a more common place in realizing the nuances. And then there's what questions didn't get asked that should have, the third exercise, and then there's the action plan. And I've sent Renee and Jessica both, I think, a 1-page action matrix, which is basically a call to action. First column being, here's what I'm going to do to be more varied in my my sources of information. And then the next column is, here's how I'm going to engage those of like mind and groups where I'm used to hanging out. And then the third column is, here's where I'd like to stretch and start reaching out to the other side and having meaningful, constructive, civil conversations with the other side to better understand one another. Then we go into the skills workshops, which are 2.5 to 3 hours, and it is less dependent on having an equal balance of conservatives and liberals. It's more towards open communication methods. The 4 exercises there are setting the tone. How do you set the tone so that folks are going to be looking at things with a more open mind and an open heart? And then going into listening skills. And if you don't improve your listening skills, chances are your speaking skills are going to be frustrated as well. And then the last segment is how to deal with difficult moments or difficult people. And that's a unique talent and a way to delve into what hopefully doesn't arrive in most of these workshops, but could. And there's some examples there that we talk about dealing with hate in public places, such as what transpired on TriMet in Portland a couple of years ago, and where the mistakes were made and how to better approach a situation like that if you're ever confronted with one. And I can answer that if we have time afterwards. So the other workshops are depolarizing within, getting folks to focus on their own belief systems, the words that they use that might be hot button words to the other side, and how to avoid those pitfalls. And then we get into the with malice toward none and the debates, and generally taking things to while it's a broader level, it's a more urgent and more focused on our upcoming election process.
Thank you, Dan. One statement that Renee made in the chat was that you could speak to, as I understand, some schools are no longer teaching history. What effect does that have on understanding what is going on now? It seems teaching history as well as civics would be valuable to bringing people together.
Yeah, it's sad how history, social studies, history have all been subordinated to other areas that that different school boards have decided should take precedent. And of course, this varies across the country, and indeed, teaching history is important. The problem there, of course, is everybody has their own version of history, from what many of us were taught in high school to the Howard Zinn versions that go to the other extreme. They bring about a lot of the ugly and the bad things that were done in history across humankind, and certainly America was not unique in that regard. And if you look at, this is going off track a little bit, but films like Dancing with Wolves and how well that illustrated that there was a lot of conflict and warring and territorial jockeying between the various tribes before the white man came along as well. So it's human interaction that is kind of missed. So if we could somehow find the good, the bad, and the ugly to honestly teach history and qualify things that have some subjectivity to it, then we'd be better off. Recent history is much easier to verify, of course, but ancient history and things that go with some of the outrage against monuments and even the Oregon Historical Society, and a misunderstanding of history and what these figures actually accomplished. If our younger generations are looking for perfection from adults and former leaders, that's where they're going astray, because nobody's perfect, and we've got to recognize the good accomplishments, even if they had some detractors as well.
Great, thank you, Dan. So Jessica just put in the chat box the action plan document that folks can download as we wrap up our meeting today. Dan, thank you for the program today and the important work that you're doing to bring conversations to a new level. the public discourse, the civic discourse. In honor of you, we'll make a donation to our very own Salem Rotary Foundation. So thank you again for joining us. Alexis, thank you for being with us today and our first student of the month in our virtual Zoom world. And then again, appreciate Jennifer DeCenzo and Jason Greenwood for joining us today as guests. Next week is Jessica Ickes is going to be our program chair. It is about human resources during these times. Be a very interesting conversation. And then just a quick reminder that we'll be shoveling gravel tonight at, at Lord and Shriver Gardens. So look forward to seeing many of you there. And again, all the tools are going to be brought by City of Salem. So you bring your gloves and your mask and your water and we'll be good to go. So with that, and Jessica's put another document in the download chat as well. So with that, thank you again. Everyone have a wonderful day and we'll see you tonight and then again tomorrow. So take care, everybody. Bye-bye.